Okay, Scorpio Rising, in around 18 months, you'll know what this video was really about. I'm Sook Boy, you're awesome. Let's talk about it. Right now, there's an observable and repetitive pattern that was going on back in 2007 and 2009. So if you can, think back to that time period and anchor yourself in some context because it might give you some clues. What were the motivations, the agendas? What was the narrative? What was the thread? Because that thread is going to stitch itself back into your life in some way, shape, or form over the next 18 months. Recently, we experienced a very subtle shift. The South Node moved into that 10th house of Leo. The North Node moved into that Aquarius 4th house. And so because of this repetitive pattern, I'm not saying that you're going to live the exact same circumstances or go through the same situations. It is merely but a clue. And like I said, it's very subtle. You haven't even noticed it yet, but it will become more significant over the next 18 months because the 4th house and the 10th house is where you are going to experience eclipse seasons. Most of the eclipse seasons. There's one in Pisces, but they're predominantly on the parental axis, the 4th and the 10th house, Leo and Aquarius accordingly. And whenever we experience eclipse seasons, it usually signifies or is symbolic of major beginnings and major endings in our lives. Now, the 4th house and the 10th house are particularly observable and noticeable because they're what we call angular houses. The 4th house is very much your private world, your relationship to your living situation, your home, your family, your property, your roots, your heritage, and your ancestry. The 10th house has a lot more to do with your public self, your public persona, reputation, what you feel accountable for when you're in that public domain. It can also speak to your life direction forward and your career. That 10th house is your subjective perspective of what success is, and it's often how we are recognized in a more public way. The 4th house, on the other hand, is your foundations, and it's how you find security, it's how you find comfort. It's where you can relax at the end of the day, well, ideally. Okay, so let's nest this in some context. What is Leo and Aquarius all about? That Leo 10th house is about taking the initiative, taking the lead in circumstances, basically showing up. It speaks a lot about how manicured your public reputation is. It's your sovereignty, it's your authority, it's your ability to influence other people with your actions and your words, to inspire other people with your actions and your words. The archetype of Leo is very much how you express yourself. In the 10th house. It's, again, in this public domain. And it's ultimately the cult of your own personality. When we see the South Node moving into this area, it's basically doing an audit of whatever is performative in this area of your life. Ultimately, over the next 18 months, it wants to almost incinerate any of your coping mechanisms, anything about you that isn't working for you, anything that's overly performative or inauthentic. It's going to ask you things about your identity and how you show up. Has your professional status become inseparable from who you really are? Over the next 18 months, the need for some kind of public recognition could be replaced for finding your inner peace in your private world. And this is what the North Node will have an insatiable thirst for, going back to your roots, going back to your authenticity. For many of you, your career achievements might not feel as satisfying as they once were. You might feel the need to withdraw and give some more TLC to that home environment, the relationship with your parents, the relationship with your family, the relationship with your spouse, and your children perhaps. In other words, has your ambitions to be successful somehow derailed your ability to find real security in your private world? Does being successful actually equal genuine security? Is there a facade? Is there some kind of performance that the public see, a public persona, so to speak, that when you're actually home in your private world, you don't share those same qualities with your nearest and dearest? Or when you're on your own and no one's watching, do you feel hollow and empty? Do you need to actually invest more time in that person, that identity that no one sees? In fact, you might realize that you've taken 3 steps forward and now you have to take 2 steps back because the foundations of your life aren't actually supporting you. And until you have mastered the logistics of your private world, you won't actually be able to launch off that and achieve success. Now, an Aquarius 4th house can be rather chaotic. It's a bit unconventional within that home or living situation. Now, the 4th house ruler, Saturn, is in your 6th house of Aries. And that speaks to illness, sickness, potentially your parents or your spouse or someone you live with is actually suffering and you have to care for them. And it's time to get your affairs in order. Now, this could also mean that you've burnt out and you actually need to care for yourself a little bit more. Give yourself some more TLC, let's say. Now, the North Node moving into this area of the chart has an insatiable thirst. It's very unfamiliar, but it's very rewarding if you actually build up your life in this area. Meaning that at the start, it doesn't feel natural, but as you build it, it compounds and it gets a lot more satisfying the more effort you put into it. Ironically enough, you have Jupiter up in that 10th house and Saturn in the 6th house. So recently, you may have even had a bit of a glow up. You may have overwhelmed yourself, though, with taking on too many roles. And now, indeed, you are burnt out or you've become a workaholic. And some of the relationships, the important relationships within your family, living situation, they actually need some attention now. Is your home and your private world a sanctuary? That's what the North Node wants. And the more you invest into that, the more comfortable you'll feel about many areas of your life. Saturn, again, ruling this 4th house and the 6th, can really front load you with a lot of duties, a lot of responsibilities, and you constantly have to be accountable. So if you've been neglecting that at all, it's going to land in this 4th house. Grand gestures, ambitions, what you're building in that 10th house will become a little less satiating, a little less rewarding as the South Node moves through this area of the chart as you get called home. And the more investment you put into that home, the more valuable it will become. That Saturn is asking you to once more be very consistent with how you show up as a provider, as a father, as a mother, whatever the case may be. Or indeed just showing up for yourself or taking care of another person, for example, or taking care of yourself better. So you're just more consistent and more psychologically secure. So again, at some stage, you can launch back off into that 10th house and go out there and slay the world, do your thing. For many of you, this could be really literal, like you're actually preparing your house for a renovation to sell your property. Or again, all of a sudden, you're called home because you were needed there for some reason. Now, it might feel weird at the start, but the more you invest into it, the more you'll be able to reset what has been established and create new habits, new relationships, deeper, more meaningful relationships with you in your private world and that space that you occupy and share with others. Now, I'll be covering each and every eclipse, so I'll give you some more nuance when we get to those dates. As a thank you for watching this entire video, please feel free to send me a DM. I'll send you a coupon code for $30 off my natal and birth chart readings, exclusively for new clients. Only love, positive vibes always. Hope that helps. Goodbye.